5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Real people, real issues, real life. Talk Recovery Radio. Live from the heart of the downtown east side, it's Talk Recovery Radio with Giuseppe Ganci and Darren Gaylor on Vancouver's Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. From the streets to the studio, bringing you addiction recovery stories from real people with lived experience and real experts on today's issues. Tune in live every Thursday, noon to 1. Powered by New West Recovery. Real people, real issues, real life. Talk Recovery Radio.
And good afternoon, Vancouver. Hello, this is Giuseppe Ganci, and I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Darren Gaylor. Hey, Darren.
Hey, what's going on?
I'm keeping busy. Good to see you, Darren. We had Recovery Day on Saturday. Yay. Oh, you know what? I got to change my background image to this year's version of Recovery Day, because that was a couple years ago. But you know what? We did it.
Awesome.
So for those of you that know or don't know, I'm one of the committee members for Recovery Day, and Darren is always our wonderful MC for Recovery Day. In the middle of COVID, in the middle of the fourth wave, on a Saturday, on a rainy day, on September 11th, we got thousands of people on the streets. We had permission to do so. We had permits, all that kind of stuff. We were giving out masks. We had hand sanitizing stations everywhere to help limit any possibilities of COVID transmission. So we did our part. And you know what? People showed up.
People did show up.
Yeah.
I mean, that didn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think for those of us that know Recovery Day, rocked out with Trooper and, danced in the street and, met up with our friends, I think there was a lot of us looking forward to that.
There was, yeah. I've been to, with my other job, I worked last door. We go to lots of festivals in the summer, and when it rains, it's kind of like and it's like, let's go. And
yeah.
Like I've been to many festivals when it rains and people are just like ready to leave, and nobody really. This was different. People stayed right to the end, and people got wet, and the comment of the day happened again this year. It's happened at other recovery days in the past. Somebody who had never been there. She was one of the photographers who had never done, like the Recovery Day event.
Yeah.
And she said the magic words. She's like, this is so different than any other festivals I've been to. It's like everyone knows each other, and it's like a big family. And I'm like, even if we don't personally know each other, we actually do all know each other. And, especially with the people that are in recovery and the allies, family members, like they all experience the tragedy of addiction, and when recovery comes to their life, it's like, oh, we can breathe again. So that energy was felt throughout the crowd. And so thank you to all the volunteers and to all the people that came. And shout out to Phoenix Society, who volunteered at the memorial tree this year. They just did a wonderful job, and the tree looked, it's sad that it looked amazing, but it looked amazing, the tree this year, with all the names. And I think maybe because it was cloudy and rainy and everything was kind of just, in that gloomy kind of weather that day, it just made it mean so much more. It was quite interesting seeing the tree. What was your favorite part, Darren?
I don't know. I mean, like, there was those bands. It was so fun to hear some classic, music. Like, it was, every song was something that like everybody knew, and you hear on the radio, or you grew up with. I mean, it was really nostalgic in that way. I don't know what my favorite part was. Like, I love it every year. I just love being able to like walk down the street, check everything out, see everybody, say hello to people I haven't seen in a while.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think I was like backstage ready to like come on up during a famous players performance, and they threw out Eminem's One Shot, I think it's the name of the song.
Oh yeah.
But it was just so good. Like it was so good. It was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's what Recovery Day is all about. Information booths, people can get help if they wanted. There was, an naloxone, around so people can learn about that. And then it was the kids zone and just entertainment, the circus. It really was an opportunity to celebrate and share information with the community. So next year's our 10th anniversary.
No way.
So we got something planned.
No
Stay
way.
tuned. Stay tuned. 10th anniversary
excited.
Recovery Day is next year. You want to be part of, let us know. And go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/recovery day, or our website, recoverydaybc.ca. And we come to you every Thursday live, noon till 1, talk about addiction recovery issues, powered by New West Recovery. Special shout out to everyone at Vancouver Co-op Radio 100.5 FM for giving us time to talk about recovery, because it seems like the province of BC really likes to talk about addiction. So Darren and I love talking about recovery with you. And we bring on guests from around the world. Darren, who do we get to talk recovery with today?
Yeah, we're talking recovery with Roman Gelperin. He's an author, biographer, philosopher, and forever a student of the human mind. Roman holds a BA in psychology from Stony Brook University and is hailing from Cambridge, Massachusetts. Welcome to the show, Roman. Good to have you.
Hey, I'm glad I was invited.
Yeah, I mean, you've got like a few books under your belt.
Yes.
There's one on Abraham Maslow. For those of us that have gone into treatment and had some didactic groups where it's like you're learning stuff, like the hierarchy of needs was always in there. We hear a lot of the term self-actualizing, but I don't know if we really sort of grasp the concept of that. Like I think a lot of us that have a little bit of awareness of ourselves, if we've gone through some sort of process of like, inner child work or something like that, we might think we're self-actualized. Can we just talk about that? Because I think it spans a lot of our topic. What does it truly take to be a self-actualizing person?
Mm-hmm. So Maslow he used self-actualization in two ways, really. And the one that most people know about now is the one on the pyramid. He had his hierarchy of human needs with food at the bottom, then safety, love, self-esteem, and self-actualization at the top. And he said self-actualization is a fundamental human need to basically make the most of your life, to live your life to the fullest in whatever way that is for you. So living my life for the fullest might be writing psychological biographies at the moment. And it's a need. It's like, if you deeply introspect what I want, like what do I want out of life, you could feel this need in yourself that I want to make the most of my life, to be the best I can be in whatever most appeals to me, like whatever is I'm deeply passionate about, whatever it is, like something draws you to it. And that's a need. And Maslow said, after you have been satisfied in love, in safety and self-esteem, this need takes the foreground. This becomes, or should become, because in a lot of people it still doesn't, the main motivating need of your life.
Right.
And then he had the second way, in which he basically used it to mean the enlightened person. The person who successfully pursues his need for self-actualization achieves a particular state of enlightenment, which is like the state of the self-actualized or self-actualizing person, meaning the truly enlightened person. Which,
I mean, ultimately should be a goal or at least a premise in every individual that's going through their day is that like a sense of purpose of really feeling a fulfillment of their life. let's back up a little bit. We're going to talk about your book, Addiction, Procrastination, and Laziness, a proactive guide to the psychology of motivation. I'm a huge believer in like personal responsibility, and how much I know in my life, before addiction came into play, I lacked drive, I lacked motivation, and I think it's part of being a human being. I don't necessarily think that has to do with me becoming an addict myself, or losing myself in addiction. What are you saying in the title of the book? Are you saying addicts are naturally lazy? Are you saying that laziness just comes along part and parcel with addiction? Like, what is it, a chicken and the egg kind of philosophy? Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, the title of the book, Addiction, Procrastination, Laziness, it's basically it's supposed to be an intriguing title. That what do these three things have in common?
Right.
People like sense that maybe they're linked somehow, but they can't say how are addiction, procrastination, and laziness part of the same thing. And the same thing is they are all motivational problems. What unites them is they are failures of human motivation. Okay. And that's what the book explains. It explains the psychology of human motivation.
It definitely does, cause that question, because I remember my journey into recovery, and I didn't know what addiction was because I was just this young guy who did drugs and everybody else had a problem, not me, right? So then when it was, told to me by my employer, you have an addiction issue and you need to go to rehab, I was kind of just like, what, And so to me, addiction only meant crack, like nothing else. It didn't mean like I didn't comprehend anything else. And when I went to treatment and they told me, take responsibility and make amends and all, I was like, what does any of this have to do with anything? Like, just can't you fix my relationship with drugs? And then I had this journey of, I stayed in the industry, I guess you can say. And then I started to learn about the medical world, and addiction's a disease and it needs medication, all that. And then I heard a really wise man say one day, and I'll never forget it. He said in just a conversation, addiction isn't just about drugs. Sometimes it's just about being lazy and wanting to be on the couch all day. And I remember him saying that, and I thought, yeah, like addiction is so much to the Giuseppe that showed up in this world where I just thought crack was the problem. I had no idea I had anything to do with it. So the conversation then is like, do you find yourself, or does it get explained in your book, the medical solution to addiction, and then this spiritual solution to addiction? I find there's a war between the two when you're actually involved in it. So what is your take on that? Like, how does this fit in the medical response to addiction?
So my book does not discuss the medical responses to addiction.
Okay.
It discusses the psychological strategies of like the steps you take to, not just addiction, but all kinds of motivational problems, the step you take to get yourself out of or overcome motivational problems. And I'm like, a big thing with getting over an addiction is you have to have a reason why you want to quit it. If people just want to quit smoking or marijuana or video games or harder drug, alcohol, for example, they probably won't be able to do it in most cases if they don't have some big goal, some big reason why, like some alternate lifestyle they can pursue by quitting it. If they're just quitting it and have nothing to fill the void, it's almost never going to happen. But my book doesn't discuss how to find that new lifestyle. Like that's I assume the reader already comes in knowing like what he wants. He wants to escape an addiction, and my book explains how your psychology works in order to, why you're still drawn to your addiction despite all your best efforts not to, and the strategies of how to get out of it.
I just got one more question, Darren. So one question we ask a lot of our authors, and usually we start the show off like this too. So it's a self-help manual. May I ask what inspired you to write the book? Do you have a personal story that goes along with this? A friend, a family, yourself, or what got you to even want to consider writing a book, or just the interest in psychology?
Sure. So what got me into writing this book is that I was doing precisely what I described. I had a big goal and a lifestyle I wanted, and which happened to be not writing this book, but writing a different, much bigger book. And I had what my expertise in addiction is in, and what my personal experience is in technology addiction. So basically anything you could get addicted to inside your computer screen or your tablet screen and now your phone screen. And that includes video games and TV shows, movies, binge watching, Netflix, pornography, social media, all those things. And from as early as age 5, that was, I think it really hit the ground at about age 8. I was very addicted to video games. And for a while, I quit that when I was in college. But then when I found that I started working on my own self-motivated project, I found that I experienced motivational problems I never thought I'd experience, which was primarily a video game or a show or even pornography was always a click away on my computer. It would always, nothing other than opening a window, typing something in without any thought would do it. And I think that's a problem a lot of people face now with COVID, that they're working from home, or maybe they're self-employed, maybe they're freelancing, maybe they're working on some passion project of their own. And instead, they find themselves failing to do it and getting caught in binge watching Netflix or playing some video games, just wasting time on social media and not being able to overcome that. And so the joke I tell about this book is that I wrote this book using the strategies I used to write this book. So in writing this book, I used the very strategies in it to overcome the motivational problems of writing the book. And I succeeded.
Well, that's good. That's good. Can you tell us a bit about what's going on in the brain? Does the book, like, because you say here there's no fundamental difference between a physical and psychological addiction. And, we had people on this show that talk about it's all in the brain. We've had people on the show that talk about it's all about trauma. So there's lots of different conversations on how one becomes addicted and how to solve that addiction. So you're saying there's no difference between the physical and psychological addiction. So what does that mean?
What I mean by that, I meant on the most fundamental level. Okay. On the most fundamental level, there's a most ancient part of your human brain that below every experience, below even every thought, it registers it in one of 3 ways. It is either pleasurable, unpleasurable, or neutral. And what is the very fundamental nature of motivation in human beings, and from what I could tell across almost all lower animals, is that their, maybe not even their brain, like whatever the organisms have instead of brain, they seek to, all right, let's just talk about humans. The human brain seeks to increase pleasure and reduce displeasure. That is the very fundamental nature of all motivation. If we didn't have pleasure or displeasure, we would never move. And everything that we're motivated to do, it's motivated either to increase pleasure or to reduce displeasure, and that's it. And so what I meant by that, that there's no difference between a physical and a psychological addiction. Well, of course, like the person experiencing it is very different. The person psychologically addicted to video games, for example, pursues them from seeking pleasure. He thinks of the video game and he is just internally compelled to just play it because his mind anticipates the experience as being a highly pleasant one. And the same, of course, for, I'm not going to say all, but for most physical addictions. The difference for the physical addiction is that also when you, which isn't really true for psychological addictions like video games, is that the person feels intense displeasure as well from not doing it, from not having their daily alcohol or whatever they're addicted to, weed, heroin. They feel an intense displeasure from not doing it. So not only are they pulled toward their substance, if it's a physical addiction, by the need to seek pleasure, they're also doing it by the need to reduce or relieve displeasure. And if they don't do it, I mean, withdrawal symptoms could be absolutely horrendous. It doesn't happen with video games. There's no withdrawal symptoms, but fundamentally, you could view everything, as I do in my book, as, are you doing it from seeking pleasure or relieving displeasure? And why people want to return to whatever substance they're addicted to during their period of withdrawal is to relieve the intense displeasure, which could be horrific, from the withdrawal symptoms.
I get it. I think I can see, some parallels, like, being a heroin addict, myself and experiencing, the physically addicted drug that is heroin. But I mean, it's just anguish. It's that displeasure, like whether it's physical, there's parallels to the anguish, the mental anguish of having to, decide to stop something or to be so, to crave so much a drug that isn't, or a substance that, or a thing that isn't specifically physical, and to get through that and to convince yourself to not need it. Like the anguish is all very much similar. I don't think, we're saying here that, the guy that's been 3 years on opiates, let's say, and struggling to just stop cold turkey, a drug as powerful as opiate is lacking motivation or is lacking willpower, correct?
I wouldn't say is lacking motivation. What draws him to the drug is motivation. It's the motivation to increase pleasure, reduce displeasure. As for willpower, I would say that is the most negligible factor in something like overcoming a motivational problem, because they're not willpower problems, they're motivational problems. The problems are basically in how your environment is structured, and your environment could be, the heroin in your closet, or it could be the video games in your computer. It is what the promise of increasing pleasure, reducing displeasure is in your physical environment. And willpower is a very tenuous thing. It's good for like seconds and minutes. It's not good for hours or days.
It takes a lot of energy to score dope. It takes a lot of willpower to get, keep, finding means and ways to get more. I mean, that takes a lot of energy. We always, it's, when you work in this industry, it's funny. Obviously, it's not funny, but you get a new person that's showing up to recovery or rehab, and they just came out of the downtown East Side hustle, stealing and lying to get drugs and doing all that, and then they show up to rehab, and it's just like, oh, I can't do that. That's just too much work. And you're like, I remember walking, for blocks looking for dope, and then all of a sudden it's like, the energy to try and do recovery. So how does one change their direction of, I'm trying to, because you got a lot of big words, so like how does one change the direction of their willpower? Does that make sense in this context? Like, so I've got all this willpower to get dope. So how do I change my willpower so it changes to like being able to sit for an hour in a 12-step meeting, or being able to go to the counselor and calling them and making an appointment? How does one change that willpower? How do you suggest? Or does your book help?
Well, I would say for something like that, where the person is so motivated to get, what dope are we talking about here?
Pardon?
Which dope are we talking
Oh,
about
all of
here?
it. Dope is dope. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Dope can be anything. Yeah.
For the person who has the willpower to go and search for hours on the streets for like the street corner drug dealer and haggle with him to buy whatever he wants, I would say the problem would not be solvable by the techniques in my book. The problem is on a more serious existential level. The person has to, well, it's not just a matter of manipulating his environment, which is the main thing in the main advice in the book. I would say that would be a matter of really understanding what it's doing to them and finding an alternative lifestyle, more satisfying lifestyle they can lead. And then they would be, once they do that, once they understand where they're currently headed with their current addiction, and once they understand, it's not understanding, it's obtaining, it's seeing a lifestyle they could possibly lead, which will lead them to have a satisfying life, then maybe they'd be ready for the techniques in my book to help them actually implement it. But the decision itself, my book doesn't cover that.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's so hard to say when you think of how one becomes an addict, and like Giuseppe mentioned, trauma they experience from the past, and years of that cycle going through, and family dynamics and everything else. Like, so much more has to take place, to get that individual, out of that whole routine and cycle. But definitely, I know for myself, once I've gotten clean, like once I've found a supportive recovery environment, I'm a few months clean, the desperation of being an addict, is sort of dissipated somewhat. So that motivation isn't there anymore. Now I'm more, raw as far as who I am as an individual, not influenced by cravings, withdrawal symptoms and so on and so forth. Now I can assess my lack of motivation, my lack of goals, my confusion of direction in my life. And now maybe some strategies are useful at that point, correct?
Sure, that would be a good time. I mean, the most effective strategies, which I discuss in my book, are basically to design your physical environment. So let's say you're a few months sober and you want to keep it that way indefinitely till the end of your life.
Yeah.
And not even once. If you relapse again, you're back at square zero. So the strategies would be to make it, the human brain kind of divides every activity, like every potential thing you could do, like go smoke weed or get heroin, into two things: into the activity itself and its consequences. And and whenever you're just thinking about doing that, your mind simultaneously, or maybe not simultaneously, but within the whole thought process, thinks of both the activity and its consequences, and both are represented by some form of pleasure or displeasure. And so the activity might be like, you might think about it and you might be compelled to do it, or you might, and you also consider the consequences, and they're horrible and you might be repelled. And those two are fighting each other. And there's the third part of the activity, which is how difficult it is to begin, how difficult it is to actually do it. Right. So the most effective thing, I would say, is to make it as difficult for yourself, if not impossible, to obtain the dope. And like even more difficult than going around the streets getting it. Just maybe move out of the area where you know all the dope dealers. Just put as much distance, both physical and effort, as you can between it and yourself. And during that time, like with everything, with video games, with heroin, with pot, whatever you're addicted to, the more distance of time and effort you put between yourself and it, the more chance you'll have to have a moment of lucidity in which your willpower will kick in. You're like, whoa, I have to stop this. Like you're searching the blocks for the heroin dealer. You're searching it. You're maybe about to buy it from him, and then at any of those points within that like hour or two it takes, you can be like, whoa, I have to stop this. And it's not always successful, but that is the best chance at success, as opposed to if it's literally right on hand, or in terms of technology addiction, it's literally a click away. Like your brain doesn't even have time to consider whether you should be playing a video game. You're doing it before you even realize it.
Well, I mean,
we talk about that a lot, like in relapse prevention, that we've all found that place where we've only thought about the activity, and we've sort of like pushed aside the consequences and whatnot, like, through a craving. And there's people talk about all the time, like from when that thought process began, to the act of picking up and scoring, like there's like, what do you have in there? We can't rely on God to, to swoop in and pull us out of there. Like it is our will, like we have to pick up a phone and call somebody and be like, I'm not in a good space right now. That's our minds. I mean, what else is it? Hey, Giuseppe, like in that sense of.
Well, I mean, we do that here all the time, and we talk about behavioral change. I mean, whether it's physical or psychological, it takes time, and taking people out of the environment. That's why it's important. We feel taking people out of their current environment for 3 to 6 months, so you can learn some new behavior is very important. And this whole idea of treating addiction simply with medication and keeping people in their same environment, you forget about the whole other piece. I'm still in this environment and I'm still living in that addiction. I wanted, if we may ask you, one big topic here is we're talking to somebody who had an addiction. Did you call it an addiction to technology and video games and all that? Are you now, would you consider yourself in recovery? Because so many people are addicted to technology and they don't think it's a problem because you don't get scabs on your face from it, I guess, maybe. So do you mind sharing it? Like, do you consider yourself in recovery from video game or technology addiction? Did you just do it all on your own? Did you go to a counselor? How did you, because I'm sure someone's watching this that's addicted to technology and may not be for a 12-step program. And so how did you get through that in the early days and so forth, if you mind?
So I would say I knew I was addicted to video games when I was like from like late childhood till like 21, 22, 23. And I quit it by literally in the middle of writing this book, Addiction, Procrastination, and Laziness. When I started writing the book, I would still go on like week-long video game binges. Sure. And preventing me from writing the book. And then I'd come back to it and then something else would sweep me away. And I was like, okay, I have to apply the strategies I'm writing about here to my own behavior. And I did. And about halfway through the book, I absolutely quit all of that. Just cold turkey, never coming to it again. And for like almost a decade now, like maybe 8 or 9 years, I mean, I haven't touched any video game, any Netflix.
Wow. You don't have anything. Netflix on your TV?
No, not even once. Like don't play a video game even once. Don't start a series. Like I don't do any of that.
That is really impressive.
Is that simply because as you were, writing and focusing on the topic and perhaps researching like addiction, procrastination, like, did you see that like those things, Netflix, video games, were like you couldn't have one without the other sort of thing? Like, you know what I mean? You had to abstain, you had to remove it, because so many people think, especially technology, I'm always going to have my phone. I'm like, it's the day, it's the age, right? Like we're always going to have computers. Our children are grow up learning, via technology. We have to accept it, and we have to find a balance rather than I have to shut it all off and never look at it again. Like that is that somebody placating their procrastination?
Yeah, I would say if you're self-employed, if you're all your work is self-motivated, like I'm writing books, someone's freelancing or running their own business, and it's not an obligation. You're not going to get fired from it.
Right.
You cannot have both. You cannot both have that and the Netflix and video games. Not one will overpower the other. The Netflix and video games will overpower the self-motivated work because they're highly unnatural. Like, we didn't evolve with video games. Video games simulate the most pleasant, challenging, exciting lifestyle a human being could ever lead. Our psychology telling us that you're living the best possible life you can be. That is what the video games hack into. They're just too damn enjoyable. And so are the TV shows and all that. We didn't evolve with such just high octane entertainment. So so whatever pleasure you might derive from writing your books and working on whatever project you're working on, and it might be considerable, it's not going to be more intense than the pleasure from video games. So I would say for anyone trying to balance the two, it's not going to work. You could only have one.
I can just, I can become mindful. I can hear the excuses ringing in people's heads right now listening to this, but I think it's a perfect point. This isn't a blanket statement, a general statement, to addiction overall. I love the way it was really specific to, hey, if you have a goal, if you have always thought in your back of your mind, going back to school, getting your degree, that sort of thing, go ahead. You can do it in 4 years, but it's going to take a certain level of motivation. Or you can tell yourself, I'll just do it in 8 years and keep Netflix on and have your breaks. And you know what I mean? So a lot of us can still tell ourselves we're going to attain that goal. But if the goal isn't so much that degree, but actually, living your best life, self-actualization, that requires a level of personal and individual, dedication that I don't know if a lot of us would admit. I'll admit it right now. I'm not there. Yeah. I don't live my life as if I am going after something with as much meaning and purpose as someone who's self-actualized is. For sure,
But I would say that's the curious thing too, that even if you have I felt it was my mission in life to write these self-actualization books. I'm there's a series of 4 books I'm working on. I'm on the 3rd one now. And despite it being the most overwhelming, motivating thing, that was still not enough to overpower the draw to video games, because the video games are just this unnatural, addictive thing, which that's still the battle. Even if you're pursuing your self-actualization and you think you have the grandest thing in life, that you still have to avoid things like video games, and you still have to apply the strategies to just not fall down these pit holes because they're just overwhelming.
So it's the escape, it's the break that I think, for me, I tell myself I deserve, I need it. It's downtime. Do self-actualizing people do they does the psyche require an escape? Let's ask that question.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes the work you're doing could be self-sustaining. You derive so much enjoyment from your work that you don't really need any side hobbies.
Right.
It's the work itself is so enjoyable that it dissolves the stress from the work. So it's a self-sustaining thing.
Okay.
at points where it doesn't get so enjoyable, if your work doesn't provide you that. And I've went through periods in my life where I've had the work is self-sustaining and I don't need anything else outside of it. And there's times when, for example, when I'm editing my books, when it's just absolutely boring and I just can't, and I will burn out if I only do that without any form of relaxation. Okay. So yeah, things like hobbies, things which relieve the stress from the work are necessary, but they can't be video games. Maybe like if you're a doctor and you have like 30 minutes of free time on your hands a day, like, and you really want to relax, video games are okay. If you're like a mixed martial artist who's like constantly practicing martial arts and working out, and that takes up almost all his time, like, yeah, he could play some video games for 30 minutes because that's all he has a day. But if you have a lot of free time, if you have 8 hours of free time a day, or potentially 16 hours of free time a day, yeah, like, your technology addictions are going to eat that up.
Yeah, if it's instead of physical health, like working out, exercise, you know, that sort of thing. If it's instead of, you know, fueling yourself with a healthy lunch, you know, and you're just packing down a bag of chips while you do. I get it. Like there is a sense of balance that's required here. I don't think we can all have a life where everything we're doing is anxiety free and stress free and, you know, therefore never require an escape. I think we're always going to fight that then, or, you know, what do we do for a break? How do we allow ourselves, you know, a psychological sort of escape that isn't something that brings us to, you know, wanting other things or reminding us of how little we have, let's say, like all of that, you know, displeasure that we'll acknowledge.
Yeah, I would say your hobbies, just like whatever you use to relieve stress, to relax, they can't be something that will just be a positive feedback loop of addiction, because the easiest thing to do after watching an episode of whatever you're watching is to watch the next episode. Yeah. And the easiest thing to do after beating a level of a video game is to try to beat the next level. And if you do that even for 1 hour a day, the next day you're going to want to do it for 2 hours, and the next day for even more. And it is just going to always compete with the thing that's supposed to be a rest. It's supposed to be a rest from what you're doing. It is now going to compete with what you're doing. So much better hobbies are, and I'm actually not that good at hobbies. I like swimming. That's my main form of relaxation. I go to swim almost every day in the summer. I play with my housemates have a baby. I play with the baby. That's actually kind of relaxing. But you know, those things aren't going to get addicting.
Well, what I like about this is it leaves power in the human spirit to get well as well, and people helping people, and just being able to help yourself. You know, obviously medical attention is needed whenever you have, you know, we're not saying don't go to your doctor or anything like that, but just that whole idea, like, you know, your doctor can help you, but you can help yourself too. And so I'm really excited to talk with someone who's written a book that promotes that, people helping themselves, understanding and becoming aware that, but that you know, there's this big thing that says I'm not powerless, and the whole point of, you know, getting into recovery in the world that I got in recovery in, it says we were powerless, and it's just like, yeah, I didn't know, but now here's the information to give you your power back, and I'm empowered. I know, Darren, you're empowered. Like, I don't walk around like I don't know how to fix myself. Like, I walk around like I got tools, you know, to make good choices in my life today. And if I make a bad choice, I made that choice, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So really appreciate you being on the show and sharing us. I mean, you've got so many books written already. Like, that's impressive. You know, what a you know, what a gift to be able to put down your thoughts into words on paper so other people can learn. So we really appreciate that in you as well, Roman. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Roman Gelperin, and the book Addiction, Procrastination, and Laziness, a proactive guide to the psychology of motivation. I think there's 15
There's the book,
strategies
yeah.
for motivating yourself, why they work, how to apply them in your own life. And it says by the end of this book, you'll possess all the tools you need to take firm control of your daily existence. I like that. I like that a
Excellent.
lot.
Show the book cover again one more time. There we go. You can get that on Amazon and just search the title. Anywhere else you can get the book, Roman?
Yeah, pretty much all the online vendors.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. And you're listening to Talk Recovery Radio. We come to you every Thursday, powered by New West Recovery. Catch us on Facebook Live, catch us on the radio, and also you can replay us on your favorite streaming device, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, wherever else you can re-catch us. Darren, always good to see you. You did a great job at Recovery Day last week. Roman, you missed the beginning of the show, but we had our Recovery Day event last Saturday, which was a huge success. Thank you, Darren, for being the MC. You did a great job. And to all our listeners and viewers, thank you very much. We'll catch you next Thursday. Roman, thank you very much for being on our show.
Thank you for having me. This was super fun.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.